Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Hope you're having a very nice Sunday and make sure that you'll be spending a good 40 minutes learning a lot about deployment, and not only deployment, but a no code deployment. And we'll be doing a lot about no code and low code. So, first, we'll just try and understand why we have 90% of the ML projects fail to deploy. So, hoping that we have a good amount of people in. I'll just wait for a couple of moments to get started. Just make sure that it's just a 40, to be precise, half an hour of thing of the webinar, and I'll make sure that you understand a lot about it. We're going to be discussing about why does it fail and what are the complexities behind this, and how can one try and get this deployed. So we'll be also doing a live demo on a uh, no code by Google. We'll be using something that Google has already developed on no code. We'll be trying it, testing it, exporting the model, and getting it deployed right away. So I'll just wait for a couple of more moments so that we have a good amount of people in. Just a minute to go, and we'll get started. Okay, so I think we can get started now. So, hello, good afternoon, guys. Today we'll be talking about, first of all, is why do 90% of the ML projects fail to deploy? And before we start, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Ketan Solanki, and I am a product manager and Ingram Micro. I handle analytics, advanced analytics, and machine learning. The most important part I'll start is with respect to deployment. And another important part would be that I have started my journey from to be precise, data scientist, a junior business analyst, then probably going ahead by creating models and then deploying them. And then later on, coming at this stage where I am a product manager, I have to look at a lot of different areas, not only about the deployment of ML projects, but also to look at what are the kind of expenses that I'm going to get, the resources I'm going to use. And is it at the end, I have to take a call whether it's reasonable enough to go ahead with that or not. So I'll be using my experience and telling you something very important about ML projects, because I've seen this a lot, that people talk about uh, going behind the black box, like what is there inside a regression model, what is there inside classification model, decision tree, etc. Any kind of models that you're preparing. The thing is that as an ML, we just have regression, classification, clustering, probably anomaly detection, time series, etc. There are few things, and there are different models that each of them you will apply depending on what kind of data you have. So it comes down to a lot of things, like is it gonna be very expensive or not? So a brilliant example that I can give you is the Netflix one. They had uh, a challenge on the same, and the winner model did not get deployed, and it did not get deployed because it was very expensive for them to get that model to deploy. Okay, so there are a lot of factors that come in, but how do you get through them is the most important part. So I'll just go through some of the basics of the top 5 reasons why we do not do it. So the top 5 enterprise reason why the ML models do not go ahead with. So the first one is it fails to establish a reference or a baseline for business projects. So let me give you an example. Suppose you're trying to do a recommendation system, and so when the recommendation system is on, and when you're trying to have that, okay, so how many people have clicked on the recommendation system? How many people are going ahead and buying the product from recommendation system? The thing is that before starting this project, there is no baseline or there is no reference line to look at because it's a new project. It's a new thing that your organization is coming up with. So is 3% good or not? We cannot say that directly. So there is very little room for us to understand on why that 3% is good or why that 3% is not good. So it has to be very important for us to understand that we establish a reference line, and the reference line that can be established would be coming in from a different area. So for example, if you're coming in again, and what are the areas where you are planning to do the recommendation system? Before that, what had happened? What was the click percentage of that? What was the buy percentage of that area? So these are the things that will help us to come up with a reference line. So it's very important for any business project to go ahead is to come up with a reference line. It's like 7%. If 7% is good or not, we cannot definitely define it instantly. So it has to come via a good amount of research and also about what kind of things are going behind it. The second reason is there is no progressive or continuous collaboration and integration. So as we know that whatever data, especially I personally do not do any Kaggle. Reason being, the Kaggle data is already 80% done. So what happens is the feature all the things, especially the most important ones like cleaning the data, getting missing values. How do you treat the missing values? What all to neglect? What all to keep? Is already done. So, and after that, it's just creating a model, and you will see that there are the winners start creating more and more ensemble models, like one model after the other, one model on top of one another. And when it comes to real life, where there is a lot of collaboration and integration required between data points. So, for example, if I want to do I'll go ahead with the same example of recommendation system. I should have the data of the customer. I should have the data of what he has bought. That is his invoice line. I should also have the customer of his all the behaviors that he has done. If he has clicked on this, I should be able to show him this. So there are lots and lots of data points at that particular moment needs to be integrated and collaborated. Only then we are sure that when we proceed ahead with this, we have a clear streamline of projects that we have and products that we are creating, especially when it comes to a lot of online things. Okay, I've also given down a brief after this slide, which will be very important for you to understand. The next reason is a lack of testing of model in beta environment. Now, this is a very crucial thing because uh, in any model creation, what we do is we normally tend to divide the data that we have into three things. One is obviously your training data, one is your validation, one is your testing data. Now, when it comes to this, so there is a very huge thing that we have to understand is that the three data sets, the data that we have in the end is limited. Now, we have a sample to be precise. We are trying to test this small thing. But what happens is when in real life you have the data points which are outside of this, which is like an extrapolation. During these kinds, your model fails miserably. Okay, this is the reason why. This is a prime reason why people do not deploy it. Reason being, there are a lot of things that they do not consider while developing a model. So beta environment, this is very crucial. In every organization, they have a beta environment, and it's a very simple way. It's just a replica of your production. The thing is that this is used for testing. So we have these beta environment to test all the things. So once the beta environment is done properly, we then proceed with the production environment. So we have a dev environment, a beta environment, and a production environment. So there are three levels and three things in which we can actually go and test. And every time we do that in beta environment, it tries to fail because the real life data is not exactly what we predicted. The next, taking more resources than expected. Now, this is very crucial when I'm talking about taking more resources. So for example, the data that you had created one works precisely when we just have 2000 data points. And when you're trying to deploy it, which has more than 10,000 of data points, your GPU usage, your CPU usage, your usage of money, your database resources, these all things, they spike very badly. They spike exponentially, to be precise. So in this situation, you have to make sure that when you're trying to deploy a model, you have to make sure that the resources that are used is not way more ahead than what you're expecting. Otherwise, the cost will go very high, and that is something that we do not want, because ideally, whenever we are creating a project, machine learning project, there is any IT project, there is a ROI into this. And once the resources usage is very high, you do not want that to happen. So the last in the top five, I feel, was there is no maintenance and feedback loop. Now, for example, when we create a model, for example, let's see, we create a model which is with respect to a retail. So a retail industry is a very fast moving industry. So in a retail industry, if we create a model and the model sticks for 1 month and the next month the model does not work, it is because retail is a fast moving industry. And in that, we have to continuously keep on altering the model. Now compare this to, let's say, a pharma industry, which is a very stable and a very slow moving industry. So in this industry, even if I create a model 1 year prior, I'm 50 to 60% sure that the same model will work in the next year as well. So depending on these two things, like what industry are you working and what kind of industries that you will be deploying your model to, creating your model, you have to be very sure on maintaining and doing the feedback. Because if in a retail industry, if you get a feedback saying that your model worked very nicely in the last month, but this month it is not giving me results as I want, I have to go back and retrain the model. I have to get in more data points. And this becomes an iterative project. Compared to a very stable industry, like let's say pharma industry, you will see that even if in the next 6 months my model is doing good, but may not be doing that great. So I can revisit the model and I can take a feedback from the business, etc. And then I can get the model altered completely. So these are top 5 reasons why I believe that the enterprise, they fail to deploy the model. Now, let's proceed ahead with how can we go ahead with this. And when I'm saying about what are the possible things and how can we deploy, there are multiple ways in which you can deploy depending on what you have. So for example, the one and the best that everyone knows is about web services, or let's say API, REST API calls. So we can create a model, we'll create an API for that. We have the input, we have the output, and then that's it. So we can create an API model, but is that you will do for all of them, for all the models? No, we will not do that. So as per your requirement, we'll create and deploy the models. So let's look at that. So what are the best possible way to deploy? Depending on what kind of requirements or what kind of business requirements you have. So if I need an answer after 1 week, I will not go for REST API. I would rather do it in a very constrained environment, and in a very environment where I do not have to have a real life data, real time data, but I make sure that it goes down very slowly. So let's look at this chart. It's brilliantly done. So here you can see the pattern in which we'll be deploying. And here are the training, prediction, the result of the prediction, latency. This is very important. So what is latency? Latency is how fast you want the answer. And system management difficulty. So is it very difficult to manage the systems? Okay, so we'll look at each and every one of them. So first thing is, let's say a REST API. We're using a REST API. The training has to be done batch-wise. So what is batch-wise? Suppose you have, let's say, 2 batches. In this, you have 1,000 data. In this, you have another 1,000 data, then another 1,000. So you have batch-wise, and you train them every 1,000 one at a time. This is called as batch-wise. Now, prediction. You will see you want the prediction on the fly. So what is on the fly? Let's look at your camera, your phone camera. When you're taking a selfie, you're looking at any of the humans, you'll see that square box coming in, which says that it's identified as a human face. So that's on the fly. Okay. For that, the best way is a REST API, and the latency for the prediction. So when this says so, for example, the latency can be slightly slower. Okay. So for example, if you try it out again, depending on how fast your GPU is. If you move your face very fast around the camera, the box may not move as fast as possible. So that is called as the latency. It is slightly slower. Okay, so depending on what kind of output you require, you can proceed with that selection of latency. System management is not that difficult in case of this as well. As you can see that it is medium, to be precise. This is important, the second one, because this is not going to be giving me anything which is on the fly. So you'll see that the batch pattern 2 is, let's say, shared DB. Now this is where I require a deployment which is done after week. Okay? So I will be doing a batch wise training, and a prediction has to be batch wise as well. So if I'm doing a 1000 training, I would require the prediction of the 1000, and I do not require it on the fly. I require it one after the other. So here you will see that the prediction result delivery is through a shared DB. So a shared database where I can go ahead and share it. Okay. The latency prediction is high. You will see that it doesn't matter to me that how long does it take for me to get it. So you will see the latency for prediction is high, and the system management is the easiest, because over here I can even export the DB files in a CSV, try to run the model and give it away. This is something used a lot in the media industry, where you have streaming devices, especially. So you have the training is streaming, the prediction is streaming, and streaming via message queue. So here I'll give you an example. So let's say this is what I've found in Amazon Prime Video. So whenever you're watching any movie, you will see that during a scene, it identifies which are the characters in that scene on the go. So you'll see that it's streaming. Okay, the training is streaming, and even the prediction over there itself. So it will look at the characters there itself, and it will tell who the characters are. Latency has to be very low. You will see that it has to give prediction like this as quickly as possible. The faster the latency, the harder the management. You will see that the latency has to be very low and the management has to be very high. So it becomes very important for us to make sure that we have a good system for the same. Now mobile app, we'll see streaming again. We have it continuous streaming, and it's on the fly. Again, the camera is again the same example, and it uses the API. You will see that the latency is low, and even in camera you have something called as the GPU, so we can use that. And the system management is the difficulty is something close to medium. Now, what will we do is, moving forward now, I'll be doing a live demo session on how can we create, and I'll be using Teachable Machine. So I'll be going to our live demo. So let's go to, so I'm just typing in Teachable Machine. Okay, so this is the Teachable Machine. I'm clicking on that. Okay, so what is Teachable Machine? So Teachable Machine is a brilliant application that can be used, and this is you will see that there are three things. So I'll get started, and here it is. We'll be training it. So now you'll have an image project where you can classify the images. I have an audio project and I have a post project. So I'll go ahead with a very basic image recognition, which will help us to find out whether the person is wearing a mask or no mask. Okay, so let me go ahead with this. Now, this is where I will start training. So you will see that I have class 1. I'll click here and I will just say, please wear a mask. Okay, so what is this? So this here, I'll give some training examples which says that I'm not wearing a mask. So let's add some training data. You can either upload it or you can use a webcam. I'm going ahead with the webcam. So you'll see that I'm trying to add in some data which says that I'm not wearing a mask. So here you'll see that these are all the training data points. And now for the second where I'll be wearing a mask. So I'll just say, thank you for wearing a mask. Now I'm wearing a mask and I'll train this with respect to that. You'll see I've wearing a mask. Okay. So now I have two training data sets. One is for a mask, you will see here. One is for no mask. So I'm just training the model. You'll see here we'll have all the images of where I'm not wearing a mask. Here I have wearing a mask. So these are two like your training examples. You'll see how easy it was for me to add the training examples using a webcam. And here you will see it will by default capture any 50 of the images and it will start training it. So you'll see it's going to train it. It won't take more than 30 seconds. And then we'll have our model ready. And here we'll be able to see the preview. So let's look at that. Here it is. So you'll see that it's giving me a brilliant output where I'm not wearing a mask. And if I wear a mask, I'll be you'll see it is wearing a mask. Thank you for wearing a mask. Please wear a mask. So you'll see that it is giving me a very good output. So now I have created a image classification model within 2 minutes. Now, the most important part is deployment. So let's click on export. Now here you will see that there are many ways in which you can link. Okay, so I can upload a shareable link. I can download it. I'll just go to TensorFlow Lite. I'll go to floating point and I will download the data, download the model. So I'm just clicking on download the model. Okay, so I'm having some issues over here. I'm not sure what. So I'll just try and download a quantized version of it. So you'll see that it is converting your model in the cloud and it will give us a correct model in which you can download it. So once it's downloaded, hopefully this does. What will I do is I'll be installing this in an app and I'll apply it to my phone. So I'm just waiting for this to happen. Meanwhile, I can go to this GitHub link where I can use the TensorFlow Lite Android version. So let it open in another tab. There are a few modifications that this requires. So I went ahead with this to check out whether it's done properly or not. But there are some classes that are not exactly given in this. So here you can directly download it. You'll see here we have the Android Studio. How can you make the project? Let me see if the model is ready. Okay, so there is something wrong with the model. Anyways, no issues on that. So once we download the model and once you go to the GitHub, we can, you'll see that you'll be able to get the quantized zip version and I will apply it to the Android Studio. Okay, now I have already done this. So let me go ahead and show that with you. So I'll just open up my Your Phone app. So here it is. So it's trying to connect to my phone and I should be able to cast my phone in a moment. Yeah, here it is. So this is yeah. So now let me go ahead with this. So here is that model that we have created here. And this is that TensorFlow classify, the name. I'll just click on this and just hang on. I'll just change this to the version that we did. Okay. Now I have not done any hyper tuning and etc., but I can do that definitely. So let me just look at this and I'm just trying to showcase. So now here you will see that, let me just get this thing down. So this is my phone. Now here you will see what is the model and it is. So now you'll see that I'm wearing a mask. It's telling me one mask found 98% accuracy. So this is how I can deploy this model and create some more classifications using this. So this is one way of doing it. And you can see here easily, there is no mask and it's giving me a good amount of accuracy as well. Definitely, I will be training this again just to make sure that it can be done. So here, this was an example of how we can deploy the model directly. And you saw that I created a model within, I'll just share with you guys the shareable link. You can try it at your end as well, just to. so that I can share the link with you guys and you can try that as well. So this is the link that I've got, and I'll just put that in chat. Okay, so what you guys can do is you can just use this if you need. I'll be sharing that with you. I'm just trying to look if I can add anything on the chat. Okay, for now I can't see anything. Okay, so this is what we wanted to tell you, that deployment. This is one of the examples using teachable machines. I'll just close this. Okay, so everyone can go ahead and try creating an image classification or an audio classification. So there are many applications of this. Keep that in mind, that every machine learning model needs to be. So I'm just come on the live demo. Keep this alive. Okay, so I just wanted to show that in any machine learning model, you have to make sure that you please look at the applications rather than knowing the black box. Okay, very important. And the only analogy that I can give you is that, see, when you're trying to create a food, when you're trying to create any food, you do not see that how a microwave is made. You just use the microwave because it can be used for a lot of things. Okay, you don't have to create the entire new microwave. So same thing I want to tell you is that when you're doing any applications, any machine learning, think of how are you going to deploy it, how are you going to apply it to the real life world, and how it can be useful for all the people who will be some way or the other trying to use your app, trying to use a web app or a mobile app. So that's my very important message to you guys, that please don't try to understand what is behind regression, because the entire industry of analytics and machine learning is going towards low code and no code, where we want to empower anyone, not only from the IT industry, but from any industry. And they are targeting artists, they are targeting a lot of musicians, everyone who can create their own model. And even if you want to see, there is something called as runway model. So runway ML is one way, one another way which can be used for creating models. So you'll see that runway is, I'll not talk much about it, but this is the runway ML. And you can see I can create a lot of different kind of models. So this is an example. You can see the YOLO model I can create as well. A high speed accuracy of object detection. So I can create entire object detection using the square thing that we almost like. So you will see that I have created few of them, but this requires you to have that much amount of money because it's not free. So runway model is again where you just give runway ML, to be precise. Runway ML is something where you have to give them an image and select what is object detection, and on the fly it will try and give you the output. So your main idea should not be only with respect to just knowing what is there going behind it. It has to be always the application. Okay, it has to be always the applications, that how are you going to be using your ML model. And one example that I shared with you was with respect to a mobile app. So I can now connect that model of mass detection not only on a mobile app, but also on a CCTV camera, or something like, let's say I'm going to an organization, I have cameras everywhere, and I can detect if anyone is wearing a mask or not, and it will tell me. And that is how I can tell them that please wear a mask. So there are multiple applications. The only thing is that you have to know the application rather than you knowing this. So that is why we are coming up with a course where we will be teaching about no code and low code using Azure machine learning. And over there also we'll be helping you out with understanding. So if there are, I'm sure that in today's webinar we have a lot of people who know what machine learning is, who might have done deployment, who might have issues doing deployment. But if there are people who do not know anything about machine learning and they want to learn about it, So I would like to tell every one of you that you can definitely learn what machine learning is without any code, because as a product, as you grow higher and higher in your data scientist or any other role, you will start reaching that level where creating a model is not your priority. Your priority would be how to get this deployed, how to make sure that you have the better ROI, and how are the customers happy with this, what kind of feedback they give you. Okay, so we are going to be coming up with a no code Azure machine learning course where we'll be happy to answer all the questions that you have. And I've kept the last 10 minutes for Q&As. So I'll be just stopping my screen share, and I'll try and answer the questions that you guys have. So if you have questions, please put them down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer. I'll just go one by one. So I'll go with, is it going to be repeat telecast? I'm not sure about this. Chandrasekhar, again, I'm not sure whether you can watch it later. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi from Singapore. Thank you, Nicholas. Hello, Ketan. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. Hello. Thank you very much, the Gamer Boy. Can I be intern under you on the ongoing project? Subhadeep, currently we are not looking for any internship due to the scenarios over here. So, but definitely there is something comes up. You can definitely look at the job white Ingram Micro, which is there, and if there is anything that you want, you can apply there for sure. I've always post on my LinkedIn if there is any opening that we have, any opportunity that we have in Ingram Micro. Rohan, say hi. Is this being recorded? I'm not sure, Alvin, whether it's being recorded. Okay, but instead of deployment, why can't we go with Excel way submission? Like, for example, when we are building model for churn risk, can we take that data from clients and we can say who our customers churn? Yes, Pardu, you are on the right track. As I said, it depends from industry to industry, and not. So the example that you gave of churn is a good one, which can be done in Excel as well. But for example, if I want to do something like whom should I upgrade? So for example, if there is a hotel, there is a big hotel and they want to always upgrade people. For example, a standard room, and I want to give him a deluxe room. Now for that, I have to be very, very much on the fly. So I have to get his data and I have to feed in the details, and I should be getting whether should I be able to giving him an upgrade or not. What are his chances of getting upgraded are very high. So that would be on the fly. So there are different ways in which you can do, and definitely the way your example was churn and risk. This comes in the shared DB, which can take 1 week, 1 month. It's up to you. So this is not on the fly. Hi, Krishna. Good vibes. So can we opt for online machine learning for continuous training? Okay, Abhishek. So online machine learning for continuous training. So when you say continuous training, uh, we want to make sure that it's online. But keep in mind, for continuous training, it also depends on uh, what kind of other data sources you have. So if the other data sources that you have are one is offline, one is online, and one has a 1 week of range and the other one is live. So you have to make sure that you collaborate them in such a way that they come together and there is no dependency. Okay, so even the containers that we have that we use are important for that as well. So there should not be any dependencies. Okay, Farron, I think we won't have more than 40 minutes. The chat room. Okay, will this webinar be available later on the YouTube? I'm not sure about that. Will this webinar? Okay, okay. +1 on the above question. Okay, try to post it soon. Okay, fair enough. Can you use another mask for testing purpose? Amit, yes, what you said is correct. If I would have used white, maybe it wouldn't have done. So that is the reason why I said the training was just on the go. And to make the model more robust, I should be using different masks, different colors. I completely agree to you. I think the purpose of the webinar is just deployment, not testing the actual model. Yes, Sahil, yeah, you're correct. Where I have not focused much on the model creation because it was just on the fly and how easy it was for us to make. I know. I thought we'll be learning how to deploy a model using Python and not some platform for automated deployment. Sachin, yes. So I think when you talk about using Python, Again, I have a lot of things about that, because still in enterprise version, there are people who are still doing .NET. And if you're creating your model in Python and you're going to deploy that in .NET, it's going to be a big issue for you for sure. What if we have our own model? How can we deploy it? Yes. So that's a good question. So when you have your own model, so let's say an example which is similar, you have to create a web service, or you have to create an API for that. And you can use that using Flask. You can create microservices. And once the microservices are enabled and you've created that, you can then start deploying that in your uh, definitely in your project, any project. It can be online, it can be any other thing. Okay, how to deploy it on the app. So Siddhi, the one that I gave you an example was an app. We created an app on TensorFlow Lite, which was our classify. TSF classify is what the thing was. So that was using an app. Okay, sorry, I think we went more ahead. Discussed about it. Okay. Companies can't be using such platforms to deploy their production-ready ML projects this easily. Sachin, it depends on a lot of things. Companies can't be using such platforms to deploy their production-ready ML easily. I'm saying I agree completely. But when it comes to production ready, there are a lot of things that needs to be considered. First of all is, what are your systems that you have now? Are you working on AWS? Are you working on Azure? Are you working on Google? So if you're working on Google, I would rather have it as a collaborator with that. And if I'm at least our organizations, we work on a very good thing. So Azure is something that is good, and it has a fantastic way. And I'm not talking about coherency, or I'm not talking about system integration. Okay, I'm talking about where I can devise the entire thing in a container, and then where all the dependency things are already there, and that's being given out. So you have to be very careful when it comes to production ready ML projects. Aniket, is auto ML the future? I think I I wouldn't exactly say auto ML is the future, but there are different things which work on a very precise case study. So there is another case study which says that there was another good business objective, which was regarding the business had to develop an app which says where you have parking slots, and it defeated Google and Microsoft APIs. So you can see that it is very much important to be having a good case study. Uh, in healthcare domain, is ML suitable and prospects? In healthcare domain, it depends on a lot of things. So for example, you must have seen a lot of people saying that if you have the x-rays, you can detect this and detect that. That's an image classification, to be precise. And in healthcare domain, if you want to do ML, and so again, I have to ask a lot of questions on that. What kind of things? Is it just by anomaly detection, detecting what the sales are, or detecting which medical representative is going to be giving me a good sales this time? So there are a lot of questions in this. Remote internship, I'm sure this is not that. What do you mean? Why don't we need to lay much stress on mathematics behind the algorithms? Okay, what did you mean by we don't need to lay much stress on mathematics behind the algorithms? Uh, if you are creating a model, if you are a data scientist where you're going to be creating a model, it's important for you. For me, as a product manager, you will be one of my resources. So for me, I just want to make sure that the model is done its job. So as a data scientist, you have to worry about the maths. Any decent framework for deploying REST using Python or Node or anything else? Uh, so there are different frameworks, and as I said, it's I can't. There is not one good framework. There are different frameworks, and the one which uses. So, for example, if you want to create an API in Python, I think Flask is the best. Can you tell me where I'm able to learn ML where they don't teach theoretically but practically? Anshika, I do not have a direct answer, but I'll just tell you what we are planning to do is we will be teaching you a no code machine learning from scratch, where if there is anyone who doesn't know what machine learning is and he or she wants to learn about it, so we will be giving them from scratch a good, and we'll be telling them how the pipelines are made and how to get the deployment thing ready so that they can give it to the developer. Keep in mind that you are not a software developer. You will be one of the data scientists who will be creating models. Okay. And nowadays, within 5 lines of codes, you can create a lot of models. So for me, I focus on applications. If there is no applications, your code is rubbish for me. Can we list down the steps for deployment? Sagar, for deployment, as I said, if your model is ready, how do you plan to deploy that? Is it gone, and what kind of, do you want it on the fly? As I said in my PPT slide, that depending on what kind of things we have, so we'll be going ahead with it. Can you please share the part to start the ML and deploy them? Okay, part to start the machine learning and deploy them. As I said, when you're trying to deploy, so let's say if you're doing a regression model, everyone, this is for everyone. So in regression model, let's say you just have 4 inputs, the iris, the classification. Okay, you have 4 things like sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. There are 4 things, and where is the input gonna come in from? And you want to, suppose you want to create a web application for that, where a person just types in anything and you have to classify them. So that's kind of a web app, and that's a simple deployment, the basic deployment that can ever happen. But when it comes to model and enterprise thing, you have to give the entire code to the developers, okay, where they will either use it as an API, or if your entire website is, let's say, in PHP or let's say Java, it has to be converted, or it has to be used as an API. So these are 2 basic things. If you already have a TensorFlow model, how do we convert it into TensorFlow Lite? And is it necessary to convert into TensorFlow Lite to deploy into app? Yes. For app, it is necessary because the Lite version is for app, and it is important. And why do you want to convert it into a TensorFlow Lite? Uh, First thing is, when you're trying to create a model in TensorFlow itself, you have a TensorFlow Lite version as well. So I'd rather create the model in TensorFlow Lite. So if you start with OpenCV, I don't need to have the knowledge of SIFT and SURF and all concepts. I wouldn't say all concepts, but I make sure that, so see, as I said, there are people who have a lot of knowledge. There are people who do not have any knowledge. Where do you sit is more important. Okay. Is there any natural language project on regional languages using ML where I can find the source for the same? Natural language for this, I think Google has it. Google definitely has it. You can look for them in their own GitHub. Is it a good is it good to go with writing journals on object detection or deploying them, which is better for placements? I would proceed with deploying them, because object detection, there are multiple things. So I wouldn't, please post it soon. I had created a mass detection model using Keras and TensorFlow, but now it seems so much easy with Teachable. Abhinav, yes, the entire thing was to create things faster and application. As I said, I believe in applications, and you can create thousands of models. As you see that there are 90% of the projects that you do which are just lying on the shelf. Do you think even deep learning models can be automated? Yes. If you go ahead and download the Runway ML, you see there are a lot of deep learning models which are already been done, and you just have to upload images, you just have to tell what it is, and it will be able to do it. Data structure is necessary for data scientists for freshers. Yes, data structures is necessary. If you're as a fresher, you have to understand that part, because still we are at the nascent stage of understanding what no code deployment is. But don't worry, the world is changing fast. You have Data Robot is one of the advocates of that. Google is trying to do with respect to teachable machine and many other things, which they are coming up to that no code deployment thing and no code machine learning pretty soon. Can no-code deployment be used for more complex NLP applications like text summarization? Yes, definitely. In fact, if you look at Power BI can do that within, if you have a connection to the Azure ML, you can do that within less than 2 minutes. You can do that within less than 2 minutes. I'm thinking that this type of mass detection model can be integrated with CCTV buildings, hospital. Yes, exactly. Is it a good application? Yes, it's a good application. So that is one of the things, Abhinav, that we were looking for. is we had a project which says back to office safety. So we were planning to deploy this in the cameras, CCTVs, and we'll be identifying if there are employees, associates who are wearing masks or not. And depending on that, we'll be giving them an alert. That was an application. So that is what I believe. An application of a machine learning model is more important than creating a model. Recently, I created a face expression detection using deep learning. How can I deploy it so that user can give their own image? Please guide me. Okay. Recently, I created face expression detection system using deep learning. Blah blah blah. Can I deploy it? So, okay. First of all, what are you planning to do with the face expression? So, when you say face expression, what is your end goal? Is more important. Just creating the model, frankly, it's just for your own safety. Then it's good. But if you want to deploy it in deep learning thing, I think you have to create a Flask API and you have to create an app for that. Can I deploy on Node? Yes, you can deploy. What is the current status and future scope of ML in engineering application? That is design engineering, finite element analysis, computational fluid dynamics. What is the current status and future scope of ML in engineering applications design? I think there are a lot of applications in engineering as well, because we were planning to do one of the projects with the engineering applications, which was with respect to NLP, and it was with respect to getting the observations in. How do people find data sets for their projects? This is the easiest. For data sets, there are lots and lots of resources available, and you have Kaggle is the best. So just go there and start searching. So Kaggle is one, and there are many. There is UCI repository as well. You can go ahead there as well. Kaggle and UCI, perfect. Okay, is Python a good start with ML model? Yes, definitely. Python is being used in enterprise versions, and yes, it's a good start if you plan to go ahead with create being a data scientist. Yes, it's a good start. So I hope I try to answer most of the questions, because I've learned that we have a mixed crowd. About there are people who have done this in a long time, and there are people who are new to this. So I hope I did my best to make sure that I answered most of the questions. Uh, yeah, look, I'm sorry, I'm not able to understand the language. What are the costs associated with deployment? Huge cost, Animesh. Frankly, it's huge, because with deployment, you have to not only listen to one team, you have to listen to a lot of teams. Especially, you have to get a go ahead from the most important, that is DevOps. So it's a huge costing, because there are fundamental changes that needs to be done. There is no correct figure. Sorry for that. Does combination of embedded and ML will bring new applications in future? Yes, we are already seeing those applications. So we have already seeing it. So there is nothing that in the future. How do you learn about deployment of ML and DL models? So as I said that there are two ways in which it can be deployed. Either your main or your core application is in the same language as you're creating your model, or you can do a web services. These are two ideal way of going ahead about deployments of ML and DL models. Um, that's it. So if your core application is in Java, and nowadays the JavaScript also has a library which is into machine learning, so that has its own library, and our focus is frankly on people who want to not only uh, create models, but create models without any code, and deploying them easily, so that we can give a framework to our developers and they can start deploying them. Anshika, yes, we will be starting from scratch, and it's going to be creating models and deploying without any code, because as a data scientist, and keep in mind that this is not only open for new beginners, for beginners or new people, but it's also for managers and who have already reached at a level where they don't want to learn how to deploy. They want to know about what it is and how can they help with no code things. So it's not only beginners, but I'm sure we already have a good amount of managers asking for the same. uh, Sai Krishna, I think someone from here will. What are my views on OpenAI GPT-3? I have Microsoft is planning to buy them, so it will soon be commercialized for sure. And as you can see, that there are a lot of applications of the same as well. Since Microsoft is also one of the players who are going ahead with this no code thing, you will see that there is a sketch to code that they have. A brilliant example of how can an artist create a web application on paper and get the entire model or the entire HTML file with them. So OpenAI is a very good extension of what Microsoft has its vision into. So in GPT-3 as well, I'm sure that there will be a lot of things that may happen, but I'm still looking for a enterprise ready application. Okay, I've not seen any enterprise level, kind of an application. There are few I've seen with respect to if you want to, if you just write it down and you get the Python code out as one application that I saw, which is fair enough for a person who does not know anything in Python. So keep that in mind. So that's one way. And the other thing where I've seen is like how to create a website. So if you have already trained the GPT-3 in such a way that you can create a website just by writing down the code, just by writing down in a simple English. And yes, so these are the two applications which I felt are good. But again, these are for the people who do not like coding. Python. R or Python. I was actually an R guy. But yeah, I would prefer Python because of its diversity. It has a lot of way. Will DevOps replace developer or data scientist? Can't answer it now directly because DevOps cannot replace a developer for sure. They can't replace a developer. With respect to data scientist, again, if it's a creating a model, then no, you cannot. The DevOps will not create a model for you guys. It will help you to deploy them. So ideally, no. So again, for all the GP3 and all the models, frankly, every day a new model is coming in. Every day a new kind of architecture is coming in, and new kind of framework are coming in. So just to make sure that uh, what I see is application. How can this be applied in something in a business or in a personal usage, and how can people benefit from that? That's my goal. Uh, if your goal is to learn something, then yes. If your goal is to research something, it's yes. Is your goal just gonna create models, write down codes in Python? I'm not sure. So that's it from my end, guys. I'll be leaving the studio soon, and I hope you guys had a good time. And if you have queries, we have people answering those queries and about the courses as well. So thank you all for joining in on a Sunday afternoon. Hope you guys. So I think we have already shared a registered link. So go data science. Thank you, Farhan, for the appreciation. I hope it worked for you guys. You can register on the link which is given below, and we have named it as ML and AI for everyone. So if people who want to learn about no code, how it's gonna help and change the world, and how you can start applying. So there are, if you want to grow in a different way, that's what I would propose. Can you please suggest any article sites to understand more about deployment? Sadie, there is not a single. I not narrowed it down, but you can look at Machine Learning Mastery. That guy is pretty good, and he will help you out with deployment helps as well. Again, when it comes to deployment, try a small deployment. If you can do it on your phone, do it on your web app. Will be nothing like it. So there are different ways in which you can deploy. Thank you guys. So hoping that you had a good session, and I'll not take much of your time, and I'll make sure that you guys have got the best out of this. And I'll see you whenever it's possible. So just enjoy the rest of the day, and see you again. Bye, guys.